Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is the 4D Leverage webinar where this is the science and art of content. We just wrote our new tagline, the art and science of content. I'm still working at getting it to come across. We got an exciting webinar for you today. And this is our second webinar in our free series of content marketing. You know, we are the art and science of content. That's what 4D Leverage is. That's how we approach this whole idea. Key and I were just having a conversation that we'll have to pick up on a little bit here. That content itself, it's like the face of each individual, the face of a corporation, the face of a product, the face of an agenda. Whatever it is, that word content is so much bigger than, you know, just a slide share or just a Facebook post. It is who we are. It's the process of attracting people to us through this medium that we call digital content. And so it's exciting to be hosting a show that talks about some of the leading edges of content marketing, how to use the digital space in whatever way you are trying to create something for yourself, whether you're trying to get your voice heard, start a movement, or solve the biggest problems that we face. Content is the key to it all. How you doing today, Key?
Yes, I'm perfect.
You want to throw anything out there about just the nature of art and science with regards to content before we get into what we're getting into?
Right. I would say that a campaign success really depends on how we position both the artistic side of things and the science side of things, because both plays an equal role. One without the other is not going to help a campaign go into a successful journey. If right now the world is so cluttered, you have so many people talking, so many campaigns running. Every business has their own way of getting the content out and sending a message across. But in most cases, they are nothing more than a copycat of the same content rewritten in different formats. They lack that one essence, the essence of creation, having something which is unique, which speaks a language which is so profoundly different that they get noticed, they get known for it, they get shared for it. That human touch is not something that comes by planning it in a scientific way, but it comes from thinking creatively, which makes a brand what it truly is, a brand. And brand has their own way of functioning, their own way of doing things, and that is the creative side of things, the artistic side of things. And science side is how you organize all that, how you put them in a process, put them in a system, in a scheduled manner. It goes out consistently, bringing a stability and consistency to the entire brand in the minds and eyes of the consumers. So when both of these get hand in hand, you come up to a point where there's a tipping point of magic that just takes you from there. Because at one point, when you're as creative as what it takes, you go viral. People start putting their own mind, their heart, their effort in promoting you. They take the ownership on themselves to make you who you are and who you want to be. They take your vision, your goals, and they start running with it. It becomes theirs. And at that point, you're connected deeply with your audience, so profound and so deep that they're going to take the journey with you. They're going to take the risk, the hills and the downfalls together. And that is the power of content marketing. Words are the most powerful things that we have today, and they are the best weapon that we can use in this world in a peaceful and productive manner.
Boy, that's a beautiful thing you just said. Don't ask me to repeat it. Awesome. And the entire perspective of 4D Leverage is this: to get anywhere, you need leverage, right? You're always trying in business to find ways to apply leverage. Some people apply leverage in kind of a bad way, maybe by micromanaging or whatever. But when we talk about leverage, we're looking for strategies, relationships, exchanges of value that allow us to move the dial and move the needle of our success towards the expected end that we have mapped out in our business plans, et cetera. And what we do with content is simply use it to get leverage. You can get leverage many different ways. If a lot of people got leverage during the SEO days of keyword stuffing and link building and things like this, and they found ways to get leverage. And as Google and the other major search engines have moved beyond that to a more personality-based, content-rich interface in order to provide better results, that leverage has shifted into the favor of content. And so now we recognize that content really is the face of any leverage that you want to get. So think in your business, where do I want leverage, and how can I use content to get that leverage? And that is a great starting point for whatever the outcome ends up being, to look at it that way. So this particular weekly webinar is now being magnified and further supported locally here in North Central Washington, where I am, in the town of Omak. It's being locally supported by a 4D Leverage monthly get-together, where we physically meet to bring a lot of the ideas that we work on, that you'll hear through this show as well, together. And so with this platform being extended physically and in these webinars, we put out some core values that we want our audience just to recognize as we move through everything that we're doing. Because 4D Leverage and this approach, it really opens up an opportunities for some very, what we call 4D revenue streams. It opens up an opportunity for a lot of that kind of niche building. I like to say that the new riches are in the 4D niches. And so with that, we have about a dozen or so core values that we want to get across. I want to open up each one with that, just so that we can talk about it and kind of use it to lay a foundation for all this. We nurture creativity in all we do and influence others to be creative. That's one of our primary core values, because we see that the future is creativity. We can recognize that content requires a creative, this whole movement into the creative world, and how creativity and business are very, very much coming together. In that essence, to nurture creativity in all that we do means to take the leadership role in creativity. And we believe we have enough of a foundation to do that with. But it also means to keep that creative energy going. Because in that space of creative energy, there's typically no detracting. There's no criticism of a damaging nature. There's no negativity. Creativity, and when you nurture others in creativity, you're encouraging them. And you're encouraging them in a place where there's lots of energy. And that is it. We just got I don't know if my screen shared that. That in that creative space and in that situation, there's lots of valuable and important information. In fact, it's so valuable and so important, it's really what we're trying to harness in this coming generation. And if you understand the principles of 4D content marketing and 4D leverage, you'll be able to apply these concepts and really come up with some exciting strategies for both your business, your personal life, and potentially a new venture that you'll be able to share here, and we'll work on them with you. So this webinar is going to address 3 elements, very basic elements of content marketing. And if you will, this is the scientific side of the equation. We're going to look at why content marketing takes time and why that's a good thing. And, you know, last week we talked a little bit about dating, and I couldn't help but think, you know, times where people date for a period of time, not necessarily always true, but where they date for a period of time and go on into a marriage, I think the statistics are higher because it takes time to get to know one another. But the value of what happens during that get to know phase, and during that phase where content is starting to bloom, a lot of leverage can be built into the audience you're speaking to. So that'll be fun to talk about. Content marketing is a process. So does it still need a strategy? And I think we just answered that in the tagline we've applied here, science and art. It's a little bit of both. And then content marketing, or CM, and paid ads aren't rivals. They complement each other. We're not going to totally remove disruptive advertising or digital advertising in the form that we currently know it. We're not going to disrupt that with content marketing. Maybe somewhere in the future that does take place. But that is not the agenda here. In fact, the two really go hand in hand. So why content marketing takes time and why that's a good thing. And, you know, this first one it's so fundamental that you could probably think of 10,000 reasons why this particular bullet point applies, and other ways it would apply, because most won't take the time and effort and the select few do it right and win. And this is incredibly valuable, because some people say, well, I write well, and so I'm putting out good content. But writing well and putting content where people will see it and when people are going to see it, and optimizing that campaign and constantly reporting on that campaign, that's two huge different approaches. And so most people won't take the time and the effort to actually do it right. And those that do, they win big, because this view of content across the web is so big that it allows us to see four-dimensionally. It allows us to see out of every corner of a company's agenda by the way they approach us with their content. And if you can do that and do it right, it'll set you aside, set you up bigger than even your biggest competitor. And then all good things come to those who wait. Now, patience is a virtue. We know it is. It's something that you have to work on. It's something that takes energy from you. It's something that requires a lot of diligence around. And when you put your time and diligence and you understand the amount of time and the patience required for content to really be effective, what it does is it puts a pressure on you to develop better content. I mean, that's one of the reasons that patience pays off so well, because patience packs in with it a whole lot of character that is required to do your best and to do 101% at all times. So patience and this idea that you're going to have to wait for that content to mature, and you're going to have to do a lot of experimenting to get some of that content to go viral and things of this nature. That's just a great rod to sharpen your skills all the way through and through. And then that reward, it always pays off. The law of reciprocity, it always pays to serve, right? And all good things do come to those who wait. And then number 3, as content matures, it builds into a cumulative effect that compounds like interest over time. There has been, I've seen some different formula, mathematical approaches to this idea. There's not a solid one, such as E equals MC squared. We could probably use that one though. But as content matures, as it's been out in the streams and it gets searched and it comes up time and time again, what happens is it builds this cumulative effect. You know how Google is. They like to throw juice at anybody that's getting traction. And then when you get traction in certain channels, you'll often get featured, and then you get a real big boost. So content, unlike an ad, which just fades away the moment the quarter runs out, content stays out there and it gets more and more passed around, and it starts to resonate with your audience as well. See, your audience may see you from one perspective and then another, and a video and a slide share, and maybe they read a blog post and they got one particular perception of who you are. But as that perception gets compounded with more content coming at them, and it's coming at them through a setting that they chose to be on that particular platform, watching videos or whatever the case may be, searching for the keyword that brought your great content to them. When you get someone in that environment and all the content that they've been digesting from you starts to resonate with them, then that's when the magic happens, because one piece of content will eventually kick them over the edge. It'll connect with them. It'll close the loop. And that's why you'll find out next week when you attend this same webinar, we have broken down the human experience to understand how to speak to the 7 different arenas that will trigger this kind of an effect. All right. Anybody have any questions? I'll throw it out there because we're kind of moving quickly. All right. If you do, just give a holler. Actually, let's go back one. Mr. Key, want to comment on why content takes time and why that's a good thing?
Yes. Basically, right now, with the way the entire content industry is running, the quantity of content generated is pretty high. It's just so huge in every platform. In YouTube, they generate more videos in one day than what we could watch in our entire lifetime. And with the same thing happening in every platform, the platform themselves, they are required to keep their quality standards higher. They don't want to serve anything not up to the standards to their end users. They want their users to get the best, which is the only way they can be the number one platform out there. Otherwise, their competitors are going to win them. So for this, they are being stricter in promoting the particular video or blog post or channel or a page, whatever it is going to be. They're being very strict on what they show and how they serve that content in a way which is helpful for both us as a publisher and the viewer or the reader on the other side. And with that, with the kind of amount of content that's getting published, uh, you just need to find the right place where you fit in. It's not about just having more content. It's about having strategic content in place that penetrates through all that clutter and reaches the end user and the platform's preferences. So when the platform likes the content that we have, which cannot happen overnight, even if you have the world's best viral video, it takes time for some of the people to like it, share it, and get to know what the content is and be part of the community before the community gets noticed. So all that takes time, even for you, for anyone to write content and get it out there, and for any platform to index it and move it up to their within their radar. It takes a little bit of time. And with considering the size of content that's out there and what we need to do to get our visibility, yes, it takes consistent efforts. So that's one of the reasons that one of our blog posts we have covered on a very comprehensive manner on why consistency is the key. If you're not being consistent, content marketing is not the game for you. And that makes a huge difference. It's as simple as even one article a week on a every week basis for 1 year does more good than publishing 10 articles on a day one because someone said you need to have a blog and then forgetting about the point that your blog exists. If you can be consistent, even small, that's much, much better. And yes, it takes time, but good things take time and they're worth waiting for. That's all I like to add, James.
Awesome. So we'll continue this format, except on this one, we're going to bounce back and forth between Key and I, because we're going to talk about the science and the art, right, of content. And Key tends to bring the systematic strategies and the repeatable processes to what we're doing and brings that scientific element into play. And I on the art side, and we kind of flip back and forth. We'll have our predominant strengths, and then we'll find in the middle. Sometimes I'll try to play systems guy, and I'll play it in I'll play it in conversation, and then I run out of my leash real quick. So it's good to recognize that you need to partner up with people who have those complementary strengths with you. And in this place of art and science of how you look at content, there are many people who understand their message and understand what they want to put out there. They need to find partners who can actually make that happen, can get the content built, can get the content out there. And if you can do that, if you've got that part, then chances are you need to find somebody to help you think strategy and strategically in order how to manage that. So content marketing is a process. Does it still need a strategy? Yes, it needs several strategies as we're talking about here. So a financial commitment strategy, whether this is from an artistic side or whatever the case may be, a lot of these campaigns just don't have the depth in order to create what they need to create in the digital space. I mean, after all, it is, as Carney pointed out, it's a very busy space and it's a very slippery space. It doesn't take much for somebody to move on, click away, or whatever the case may be. So there needs to be some longevity. And we just talked about it taking some time. There needs to be a willingness to commit. Last week, we talked about the fact that you need manpower, and money power to promote any digital campaign, and you need at least two out of those three. Well, the financial commitment piece, it ensures that either you are going to have time to write the amount of content and to create the repurposing and formatting and whatnot to get it out on different channels, that you're going to have the financial means to be able to commit that time and manpower, or it means that you have the financial means by which to hire to have aspects of this, whether you're using freelancing or you commit with a company, or you yourself hire somebody on to work side by side with you. That financial commitment has to be there. And, Key Difference Media, we offer financing for our marketing projects. But the reality is you also need to make sure that you have this financial commitment in your heart and mind. that you've committed to it, that you've said, look, I get that it's going to take 6 months for this to come to fruition. You have to be able to embrace that before you sit down to the table. There'll be plenty of time for counting when the dealing's done, right? And so, Key, throw in on the financial side, just maybe some wins and losses you've seen as a result of somebody sticking it out or stopping 3 feet from gold.
Right. I have seen certain projects where the financial commitment wise, they are very optimistic. They said they have a huge budget, almost without a base. They said they could spend a lot, and they did start with spending a lot, more than what they were actually able to handle. And they did that for 3 months, but after that they had their internal reasons and they were not able to continue that spend, and that hurts the campaign more than dividing that budget that they have across 6 to 12 months. Because doing a good push towards if that's what you're going to do, focus on 3 months and with big budgets, then the campaign should focus on a different approach of gathering the leads and converting them as quick as possible before your time runs out, instead of nurturing them when you do not have that time to nurture over a longer periods of time. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to focus on the short term, the whole strategy changes. Like it said, content marketing is a process. It follows and step A, B, C, D, E, but you can follow the same steps for different strategies. And how you do that and in which order you do it really drastically changes. So the strategy plays a key role when it comes to anything financial. Or in other ways around, financial plays a key role in how you organize your strategy. The best strategy in the world, the one that works for all companies, might not work for you if your financial conditions are very different from the one of others. So in case if you're ready to spend over a longer periods of time, then you could definitely change your budgets. You can understand your business, and then you can estimate how long you can wait, how long you can spread, what you can do in that period. If your business has a high value business, then you can afford to nurture longer because you get to profit higher with every lead that gets converted. So the value of a lead is higher, which means the amount of money, focus, effort you put on nurturing should increase. If your sale is short, then you should focus on the quantity of the lead and the quality of the lead and try to reduce your nurture campaign a little bit. So the strategy and the tactical side, tactics are almost like the legs of the strategy. All that completely changes with how your business is and how your financial commitment is. In most of the cases, you can always fit a right financial strategy with your business plan, but there are certain cases where a business and the size and the type of business requires particular financial backing, without which it's going to be very hard for them to do it. So the best example is if they're in an ultra competitive space and they can only spend X amount of dollars in a short period of time, it's going to get harder. So it is better to be realistic. It's better to know the risks and rewards and know what it takes to get there, because we all know getting there in the end is going to be very fruitful, very successful, very bright. We're going to be known. Everyone is going to know what we do, and the business is going to grow organically from that point onwards. But to get there, very meticulous planning is required, and talking to someone who knows what it is and what it takes and who can project on. Of course, projecting in the world of content or anything in the marketing world is very hard. You really cannot project and say this is what you're going to do, but you still can set the expectations correct if you speak to someone who is an expert or who has done those similar campaigns a lot. That's what I would like to add, James.
And so many people don't really go to the end of their agenda and own it and say, this is where we're headed, and work and plan backwards and swallow that financial investment and accept it. We always say we get what we expect. And too often we project our campaigns from one end like headlights. I see down there where this could take us, instead of going there and totally committing to it and working backwards. And that's what we would rather see, that like he said, over a 12-month period of time, the smart strategy, the same amount of money be laid out than in a 3-month period of time. This isn't about making money in 3 months. This is about finding the right strategy that works, because we understand that when you tune the note, your audience will hear the message and the song. And that messaging strategy starts with you knowing who you are, what you got to sell, what you got to offer, what kind of value flows from you, and then to focus it, get it clear, determine which assets you have that support it, and then put it in front of the customer that has exactly what it is that you're offering, has a need for it, and they have a receptivity. And really this is done. It's interesting when we're working personally with someone to talk through this. Most of this tends to happen. You'll be talking back and forth, and then at this unconscious level, you and whether it's a client or a prospect or another business person, whatever, you both get this real focus clarity between you. And all of a sudden, you both just innately know all the nuances of the message. And what you've done there is you've synced up with that partner of what you're doing. And really, if you can analyze that and bring it back to this message strategy approach, and we have all sorts of formulas that allow us to build very intelligently and repeatedly these different messaging strategies. But when it boils down to it, it's that connection that you have with that other person. And once you make that connection with whoever that other single person is, it really starts to dictate your messaging strategy and how to approach. And you just add with that some of the mechanisms that incite action, and you've got a very strong platform. I love the messaging process, Key. We like talking to people, right? We like connecting with people, because when we do, we find people that are like us, and it reinforces what we're doing, who we are, etc. Thoughts?
I would say that when it comes to messaging, that clarity can make a big difference with the success of the campaign. Because if you do not know whom you're speaking to, if that clarity is not there, then it's like a big gap. It's like speaking into a well without a bottom, without a base. And I've seen from my personal experience that when I go and speak to certain clients, they say that they understand whom they are speaking to. And they have this huge Excel sheet with all the data, demography, and whom they're talking to, what their age is, and all that. But there's one thing that is missed most often. Knowing whom you speak to is one thing, but knowing how you need to speak to them is a whole different ballgame. It's psychology. It's knowing what is in their mind, where they are, and what phase in their life they are in, and at what point your brand, your business solves that particular problem which they are in need of. If that is understood, and if you know the words which resonate most to them, and if you can connect to them in a form, in a manner which they can relate to, and they're really feeling that they're talking to other person, that works a lot. Even in the communication as a content marketing campaign, in social media, in emails, in any form, I would really prefer and ask my clients to always use a personality to communicate. Do not just communicate from a brand. I am, communicate as an individual, I instead of we. And that makes a huge difference to what they hear from you and how they interpret that. When you send a message with a personality to yourself, then you're building a story there, you're building a relationship there, and you're building a history between you and that audience. And many times that works miraculous, because that individual bond that you build stops them from going to their competitors. In the competitors, they might find that the messages are cold and they don't feel that human relationship. We have come to a point in time when trust is the money in this world. If you can gain and win the trust of someone, that is all the riches that your business needs. And to gain the trust, you cannot gain it being a robot. You cannot gain it being a computer. You can only gain it by being what they are, another human being on the other side, who understands, who feels, who thinks, and who has the good and the bad, just like who they are. We do not want to just project all good and unrealistic image. We need to project what truly is our brand and show our strengths, show our weaknesses, and that makes them like us, that makes them follow us, that makes them resonate and join with us. And if we can do that effectively, the person we speak to and the person we speak as, it is a killer game changer in the world of content marketing. That is the soul. With you just wrap all the words around that and package it, but that is the soul, the true human connection, the emotions that you talk with.
Wow, we can unpack that, and I think we will a little bit on our next episode next week. That nails it. All right, I'm going to just keep moving on because I could camp out on a lot of what you said there. Delivery strategy. This I know Key's going to have a lot to say about. The format, the channels, the time of the postings. From a creative side, this delivery strategy is kind of the essence of 4D story. It's the essence of taking a story or a message or whatever, an agenda that you have, and delivering it to people while they're moving, while they're living their lives. So in order to do that, you have to sync up with what they're doing when, and how they're perceiving you. I mean, it really takes on a lot of different variables, but it allows for this organic process. The delivery strategy allows you to meet up with people where they are, where they're searching, and really kind of dictate or predict the emotional state they're going to be in at the moment that you connect with them. And your delivery strategy has a lot to do with that, because you understand what they'll be doing, whether they'll be sitting on the couch watching their favorite show, or whether they'll be hustling and bustling to work, grabbing coffee and trying to listen to what you have to say. So this delivery strategy piece really, to me, is a major component, a major aspect of how that message is going to impact who and at what time. And this really is where the rubber meets the road, being able to get that content from a concept into a format that it can actually be delivered in a physical way across digital space, that it can actually be delivered to somebody in order to make an emotional connection. Good night. We deal with a lot of esoteric stuff in this process, don't we? But talk a little bit about delivery strategy from the scientific side, Key, because you have this down yourself to a science.
Right. I would say this delivery strategy is the heaviest part in the content marketing process. It appears to be the simplest part because you just go there and post it and it's over. But delivering is the difficult in terms of manpower, time intensiveness, planning, the amount of infrastructure it needs to run it, etc. For you to just imagine if you're publishing to one or two social media, it's going to be easy. You can just have your personal accounts or business accounts, open the browser and post it. If you're managing 3 or 4 different social accounts, you have different tools through which you can just post to them. But what if you're posting to different platforms, which is not supported by any of these automated tools, but you need to post it manually, and still you need to maintain your consistency across all the different platforms that you're posting in terms of time, in terms of how you post it, in terms of how you brand it, how you design, etc. And at that point, if you talk about 65 different platforms, you're talking about a huge number. So even posting one piece of content, let's say a video, audio, infographic, one of each type, to all the 65 different platforms, that is something that takes many more than a day to just post it across all these different places. And then to ensure that it is posted in the right way, you need to verify, check, you need to go through it and make sure that there are nothing left out. Some of the platforms might cut down things based on their size limits, and some of them might, let's say if it's a video or image, they might process it differently. Like the size of an Instagram post is different from that of a standard Flickr or Pinterest. Or if you talk about videos, there are some platforms which has limitations in size and so on. So when you do this, it moves from just being an opportunity or a place to post to a process and a system where it requires checklist and data to determine what platforms are suitable, what are the different formats needed to get yourself in all those different places, what are the restrictions that they have set. If some of the accounts might have certain limitations, and in some cases you might need approval from the platform owner, which means they take a little bit of time to approve your post. It could be an article or it could be a video, and you just need to track it and you need to analyze, know when to do what, and it just becomes behemoth, overwhelming overnight. And to do this, it takes time, effort, and a documented way of functioning. So if someone is doing it themselves, of course, we would not suggest them to go on with all the 65 platforms. I would suggest they start with 3, 4, 5, and then slowly add one by one, as long as they can maintain their consistency. If they are going on a vacation, someone else has to post, because individuals, they expect that if something is happening in a pattern, they expect that to continue happening in the pattern, because human mind functions in patterns. It recognizes patterns, it appreciates it, and it follows it. So if you can set a pattern, then you're almost creating a habit in the minds of customer. And if you can just make sure they follow through on the habit by you being consistent with what you're doing, then you just won someone for lifetime. You just made them an addict to the content that you provide, or to the feed that you provide out there. So this to me is the huge part. It appears simple, but looks are deceiving.
Delivery strategy is becoming a primary focus of the big guys, whether it's Netflix or YouTube or whatever the case may be. Being able to deliver in a manner that is streaming, if you will, to where it's daily, it's hourly, whatever the case may be. If you had a weather channel that didn't update regularly, you wouldn't listen to that weather channel very often. And it's very much the way this is. When people have an interest in what you're doing, they want that interest fed. And the more you feed it, the quicker they respond, the faster they respond, because they get saturated by that information. In direct marketing, one of the keys is once you get someone to raise their hand, sign up on a web page, whatever the case may be, is to flood them, or maybe they come onto your program, is to flood them in the early part of that relationship with lots of information coming at them from many different ways. Because when you do that, they've already opened their wallet, they've already invested, now they're connected and they're wide open. They're looking for that information, and to give it to them, and it solidifies the relationship. They never forget who you are when you're able to do that. So the strategy of getting things out on demand, people wanting to stay on mobile, wanting to lock into one particular thing that they hear, one particular message for a period of time until they've satisfied that need, that becomes just, it becomes invaluable. And it really has a lot to do with how you approach your content, because if you don't have time to daily produce a show, you leveraging just YouTube may not get you where you want to go. All right, we can talk about that one forever. Content marketing and paid ads aren't rivals. They complement each other. You have to market your marketing. We've heard this time and again. And of course, it's too easy just to take out a newspaper ad or put up a digital ad or whatever the case may be and kind of shotgun it. But to create a marketing campaign that does what it's supposed to do and is dialed in and built to where it can be optimized, and then to market your marketing, to market that infrastructure and tell people about that is where the real exponential power from a campaign comes from. It is pushing what you're pushing. And content promotes ideas, ads promote the content. It's just, it's the best way to go. If you have an ad promoting your offer or your landing page or whatever the case may be, first of all, the environment people are in when they see an ad, mentally, I mean, they know that Google ads are at the top of the search results or over here on the right. We know what it looks like when an ad is being presented to us, unless we're being very keenly tricked. And then the moment we find out, we go, oh, and we shift into the ad mentality. So there is a certain expectation from an ad. It speaks a certain poignant message, and it is working, to purposely compel you to take action. And the whole mind-body reaction takes place at that moment. And we say, okay, we're going to approach this message a certain way. And that's what an ad does, because it is intended to drive you directly to some sort of a reaction. But content, it comes to you in a much more congenial way. It's kind of nice. You've asked for it through search engine results, right? And so the content and the ads have two different ways of approaching somebody and talking to them. However, if an ad, which is poignant, can tell somebody to go learn something, to go achieve something, to go create or receive something in the way of content, and that ad can be softened in its expectation, but continues to stay poignant in both its message as well as where you put it, because with ads you can dial in exactly where what demographic you're talking to. If you can do that, now you can drive people specifically to your content, to your message, to the thing you really want to tell them. And by doing that, and them being educated to know, like, and trust you in that content, you take these two, they become very powerful. The content more broad, the ads more specific, and they can dial your content right into the right person, spoon feed it to them, and you'll know that your optimized funnel will do the rest of bringing them into a place of nurturing, conversion, and then eventually to become a champion of your product and services. So together they have a long and short-term impact on your marketing efforts. That's number one. Ads can have some quick effectiveness, but like we said, we'll burn through some money. And the more competitive the search term, then the more money you'll burn through in getting that short-term effect. The content marketing has a long-term effect, but when these two are leveraged together, they can really help you dictate the speed of ROI based on all that other information that you bring to the table when you set up a campaign. And they can also give you, you can get an idea of the longevity you're going to get out of whatever campaign you run and however you segmentize it. Number two, content occupies a different space on the screen than ads, and vice versa. We talked a little bit about that. And content and ads project their message each from a different context. I basically talked about that in my initial description there. So taking this inside out key, I did a terrible job of describing the mechanics of this. To me, again, it's almost like, I want to say a snake where the ads allow that snake to like just poke his nose into whatever demographic it makes sense that the content's going to be applicable to. But give us a light bulb on that in the last 5 minutes here.
Okay, so I'll just try to explain this through a metaphor. Imagine you have...
That's awesome. You're going to use the metaphor in this situation. Perfect. Go for it.
So imagine that you need someone to secure yourself and secure your business, and you go ahead and hire a private bodyguard with a good gun and all that. So now you're going to be paying him every day by the hour. You're paying him for the rest of the year to help protect you and your business. That's like advertising. You just use advertising to save your business, to bring in to your business what you need to bring. But then there's one more way you could do this. Start with the content. So let's say you have someone in-house, someone who's aspiring to get out there and be that guy saving everyone and protecting everyone. And you take him and you hire the same guy, the same private guard, but you ask him to train this junior instead of just directly protecting you. So you use that ad to push traffic to your content, to grow your community, to strengthen your messaging bond with your audience. And then you let that individual who has been trained to take over from there for free for the rest of your life, feeding you and assisting you. So that's the two ways you could use that. One, you could use it just to get yourself started, or you could use that to keep yourself floating all through your life. And I would say the best part is if someone can use the power of ad to kickstart and to stabilize the business, to stabilize their foundation, to stabilize their entire message delivery chain, and build a beautiful community and continue to nurture it with the power of content. That is so huge, so powerful in terms of the amount of money it saves, the time it saves, because it just is going to sit there. It's going to be there as an asset, and it's going to continue providing value, traffic, leads, etc. Yes, you need to create more content and you need to publish, you need to maintain that trend all the time. And even with ads, you have to continue to tweak it. And as competitors come, you need to analyze, change. You need to do the same work. The work doesn't change. You don't get anything for free here. So you need to work, but working for content is more powerful because it is not cold, it is warm. And people who communicate with content, they understand, they know who you are, they connect with your brand. But when it's ad, it's cold. It's someone right out of the blue. They're just jumping in, they're seeing who this company is, they're trying to learn about you. And at the same time, they have to make a choice. And if they fail to make a choice, and if you fail to collect their lead, then probably they're lost, and the dollar that's spent on bringing them in is not going to help. So, and using the ad not as a comparison to content marketing, but using that as a aid, using that as a tool within the scope of content marketing is the big shift that's happening right now. So most of the content marketers these days, they are having advertisement and all these different ad tools as part of their toolkit. They utilize that to give them the leverage and to reduce the time it takes for a content marketing organic campaign to kickstart. And they run with it. And at one point, you would find the ROI from a content campaign is so much higher than an ad campaign. And yes, you can scale content marketing campaign in the same speed of how you scale an ad campaign, provided you have done the enough legwork and you've established the foundation, the infrastructure, the platform through which you can continue to push more content, create more content with the proper guidelines, and with knowing how your consumers react, how your audience are reacting, you could do much more, and there is no limits. Sky is not even the limit. The limit just goes on. It's limitless.
Content is king and engagement is queen, and the lady rules the house. I didn't come up with that. Somebody else said that, but that interaction, that engagement that you have on these different channels, people being able to comment and to tweet and talk back and forth to you, it creates just a whole another level of connection. And taking those ads and being able to direct that content to the person that's going to make that handshake with you is incredibly powerful. So that's our presentation for the day. Of course, if you want to discuss anything with us, you're welcome to connect with us. Is there anyone out there with questions and or wants to bring a business subject onto the hot seat and see if we can apply some leverage to it? I like this new interface. Karnika Key is taking care of all the controls. All I see is my webinar screen. So there could be 2 people on or 2,000, and I don't have to. I don't have to wonder. All right, next webinar is going to deal with the 7 areas of the human experience that if you structure your content to take advantage of those 7 areas and to speak to those 7 areas, you'll be connecting on a very comprehensive level with people. And remember, we have this 4D approach to content, meaning content doesn't just come at you in 2 dimensions, which the post itself does, right? The picture. But the picture has a 3D aspect to it. You might even have a 3D screen you're looking at content on, right? Maybe even virtual reality in the future. But what makes content 4D and adds that inner dimension is the way the content itself can move you. It's not just in the format, but it's in the way the content can catch up with you, can connect with you using retargeting ads at a time when it makes sense. And there's a lot of movement towards cognitive computing and using different aspects of artificial intelligence in order to predict the kind of content that companies will be putting in front of you. And I encourage you all to watch what they're doing, because though you may not have the budget or the ability to go after a full platform of artificial intelligence, down the line, someone's going to come out with a platform that lets you collectively leverage a data set like that. Or maybe you'll find a nifty way to use your Alexis, or maybe you'll find a nifty way to approach your content in order to communicate in a more manual way, the way maybe some of the bigger companies are using these higher technologies to do so. But content is so fluid, organic, and it's always available for you to manipulate and to leverage in any way that you want. And we have lots of strategies that we will continue to unveil. And in our monthly marketing 4D leverage meeting, we will put those out there as well and actually work on them in the workshop. And if you have any questions, feel free to just schedule some time with us and get those questions answered. Content, when you talk about it at this level, can take millions of, you could spend millions of dollars promoting it because the strategies are so extensive. But at the same time, talking in this realm about what you can do with content allows you to connect with some of the bigger ideas. And often the biggest of ideas can be implemented with the most meager of resources if your manpower, mind power, money power all match up, right? And so don't let the high concepts, don't let the bigger vision of all this necessarily scare you. Let it encourage you that, hey, you know, at the extent of that big idea is the simple possibility of an even bigger idea. And I could find a simple, inexpensive way of rolling out that particular strategy and that approach. And that's really what 4D leverage is all about, finding the smartest way to take the minimum number of resources and create the biggest ROI. Why? Because at the end of the day, you can take the results from that and reapply it. And this turns into something that you can build. All right. You got any closing remarks there, Mr. Key?
No, I'm good.
Good. All right. Well, I hope everybody else is good. Hope Christmas was merry. And whether you're listening to this live or a year from now on one of our channels, we wish that 2017 is awesome for everyone. And when we come back next week, we'll talk about the 7 areas that you can connect with people. And until then, connect with us at keydifferencemedia.com. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us.